The sky above Lithra City tore open with fire and light. Alien ships, sleek and black, descended like dark storms, casting long shadows over the city streets. Citizens screamed and ran, clutching whatever they could carry. Glass shattered as ships hovered, weapons glinting under the sun. Among the chaos, one human moved with quiet calm. Mara Selwyn, the chief librarian of the city, stood in the grand library. Her hands rested on the edge of a polished table, her eyes scanning rows of books and holographic scrolls. Around her, the library remained untouched, a small island of peace in the storm of invasion. Outside, alien soldiers poured from the ships. Their armor was shiny and strange, and their rifles glowed with energy. They moved with precision, splitting into squads and advancing toward the city center. Mara's heart did not race. She took a deep breath and reached for the thick book she had been reading, a dusty volume on ancient Earth legends. The book felt warm in her hands. She whispered to herself, "It is time." A shadow passed over the library, long and silver. Mara looked up, her calm eyes meeting the gleaming scales of Zephyros, her dragon. He landed softly on the roof, wings folding with a gentle rustle. His eyes were sharp, intelligent, and full of understanding. He did not roar. He did not attack. He waited as if he already knew what she would do. The first alien soldier approached the library doors. He raised his glowing rifle and aimed straight at Mara. Others followed, their armor clanking with each step. Yet Mara did not flinch. She opened her book and began to read aloud, her voice steady and soft. The words were strange, almost musical. They carried power, though she did not fully understand why. Zephyros shifted his weight, feeling the rhythm of her words. A low growl escaped his throat, and the air seemed to vibrate with anticipation. Then, without warning, he leapt into the sky. His wings cut through the air, creating a gust strong enough to topple the first line of alien soldiers. Energy rifles misfired as the dragon swooped and struck, scattering soldiers like leaves in the wind. The aliens regrouped, confused. Their commanders barked orders, but their voices were lost in the chaos. Mara continued to read, each word guiding Zephyros, giving him strength and precision. The dragon's claws glowed with faint energy, striking armor and shields with sparks. Citizens peered from hiding, their fear turning into awe. A human and her dragon were fighting alone against a trained army, and they did so without panic, without hesitation. Mara's voice grew louder, her confidence shaping the battlefield. She did not see herself as a warrior. She was a librarian, a keeper of knowledge. Yet that knowledge was powerful. Each page she turned added to the invisible web of energy around the library, protecting it from stray blasts. Zephyros responded to her words, twisting and diving through the ranks of the invaders, moving like a shadow of silver light. A group of soldiers tried to flank the library from the side streets. Mara's eyes scanned the pages rapidly, searching for any spell or incantation that could help. Her fingers traced symbols on the air, drawing patterns she barely understood. The streets trembled slightly, and Zephyros darted toward the new threat, claws extended. The soldiers barely had time to react before the dragon struck, tossing them into overturned carts and burning debris. Inside the library, Mara felt a pulse of energy through the floor. She realized the building itself was responding, the ancient structure amplifying her words. The books on the shelves seemed to hum, and faint lights glowed along the walls. She whispered, "Guardians of knowledge, awaken," and felt a thrill run through her body. Outside, Zephyros roared, the sound echoing across the city. Alien soldiers froze, unsure if it was fear or astonishment. The invaders paused, regrouping under their commander's orders. They underestimated the human. They had expected panic, surrender, or flight. Instead, they faced calmness and intelligence. Mara closed the book for a moment and looked out at the battlefield. Zephyros hovered above, wings beating slowly, waiting for her next command. She did not need to shout or wave. The bond between them was silent, complete, and unbroken. A young boy peeked from behind a collapsed wall, holding a small robot toy. His eyes widened as he saw Zephyros strike, and Mara smiled faintly, feeling a sense of responsibility. She was not only defending the library but the people, the city, and the hope they represented. Knowledge, it seemed, was a weapon more powerful than energy rifles or alien armor. The alien soldiers tried again, more cautiously this time. They advanced, their weapons aiming at the library doors, ready to fire. Mara's calm voice returned to the readings, faster now, with a rhythm that made the air shimmer. The dragon responded instantly, diving toward the advancing line, striking with precise force. Sparks flew and alien armor cracked under the blows. For the first time, some citizens dared to step outside their hiding spots. They watched, silent and amazed, as the human librarian and her dragon controlled the battlefield. Mara's calm was not weakness, it was focus. Her knowledge guided Zephyros. Her courage inspired hope. And even in the midst of invasion, she knew that humans were capable of more than they had ever believed. The alien commanders, seeing their first wave fail, prepared to call for reinforcements. Mara, sensing the moment, smiled faintly. She returned to the book, her fingers brushing over the pages as she whispered, "Let the story continue." Outside, Zephyros flapped his wings, ready to fight again, a silver blur of speed and power. The invasion had begun, but the city's fate was no longer in doubt. A librarian and her dragon were standing firm, and nothing, not even an alien army, could shake their calm resolve. The sky glowed red with the fires of destruction, but inside the library there was light, there was knowledge, and there was the quiet, unstoppable determination of a human who refused to fear. Mara Selwyn closed her eyes for a moment, listening to the hum of Zephyros' wings and the distant cries of the invaders. This was only the beginning, and she was ready. The alien soldiers regrouped quickly, their glowing rifles scanning the streets. They had underestimated the human and her dragon, and now their confidence was shaking. Mara Selwyn did not move from her place in the library. She stayed calm, her eyes on the rows of books that had been her companions for years. Her fingers traced the edges of a worn page, and her voice rose again, steady and firm. Words from ancient legends flowed from her lips, strange and beautiful, and the air around the library seemed to respond. Above the city, Zephyros soared. His silver scales reflected the morning sun, and his eyes glinted with intelligence. He had fought before, but never like this, never with such guidance. Each time Mara spoke, he felt a surge of strength, as if the very words were fuel for his wings and claws. The alien soldiers fired, but their energy blasts fizzled in midair, redirected harmlessly by an invisible force that seemed to emanate from the library. A squad of aliens tried to move through the central plaza, their boots crunching on broken glass. Zephyros dived, twisting in the air, and landed with a thud that shook the ground. His claws scraped across the pavement, sending sparks flying. Soldiers were thrown backward, stumbling over debris. Some tried to fight, but the dragon's speed and precision were impossible to match. Mara continued her reading, never looking up. Each word she spoke seemed to weave an invisible thread between her and Zephyros, guiding his movements, predicting enemy attacks before they happened. The aliens could not understand it. They were soldiers trained for war, not for magic or ancient knowledge. Their attacks grew frantic, reckless, and one by one they began to falter. From a high balcony, Mara watched as Zephyros leapt into the sky again. He released a low roar that carried across the city streets. The sound made the ground tremble and rattled windows in nearby buildings. Citizens hiding in corners peeked out, eyes wide. Some held their children close, others whispered prayers. Mara's calm presence was as powerful as the dragon's claws. She had become a symbol of hope in a city that had almost lost all faith. The aliens adjusted their tactics. They split into smaller units, trying to surround the library. Mara's eyes scanned the room, moving from one book to another. She found a scroll, yellowed with age, detailing the old bond between humans and dragons. She read aloud, her voice clear and unwavering. Energy shimmered in the air, and Zephyros felt it instantly. His wings stretched wider, claws glowing faintly. The scroll's words had awakened a deeper power inside him, one that had lain dormant for centuries. A group of soldiers approached the side of the library. They moved quietly, hoping to surprise Mara. Zephyros twisted midair, faster than any human eye could follow. He landed in front of them, a silver wall of scales and muscle. One swipe of his claw sent weapons flying. Sparks erupted from broken rifles and armor cracked under the impact. The soldiers tried to retreat, but the dragon moved too fast, striking them with precision. Mara's voice rose, louder and more confident. Each word guided Zephyros, gave him strength and protected the library. She did not need to fight with weapons, her knowledge was enough. Citizens began to whisper among themselves, telling one another that the librarian was not ordinary. She had something more than courage. She had power, understanding, and a bond with a creature thought to exist only in stories. The alien commanders tried a new strategy. They called for reinforcements, but Mara was already ready. She flipped pages in the ancient book, her fingers tracing symbols that glowed faintly in the dim light. She whispered sequences she barely understood, yet each sound shaped the air, the energy, and even the dragon. Zephyros dove toward the next wave of attackers. His claws and tail struck with exact force, scattering soldiers in all directions. The dragon's roar echoed through the streets, terrifying and beautiful. Glass windows shattered and dust rose in clouds. The aliens froze for a moment, unsure whether to advance or retreat. Mara continued her reading, her calm demeanor unshaken by the chaos. She had discovered that her voice could guide Zephyros not only in movement but in strategy. They were not just fighting, they were dancing through the battlefield with perfect harmony. A small group of citizens, emboldened by the dragon's protection, emerged from hiding. They stared in awe at the librarian and her companion. Mara noticed them and gave a faint smile. She did not stop reading. She knew that hope was not given, it was shown. The humans around her needed to see courage and wisdom in action, not just hear about it. The alien soldiers tried to regroup, firing their weapons in uncoordinated bursts. Zephyros moved like a silver flash, weaving through blasts, striking with claws and tail. Mara's words created subtle shields, protecting the dragon from the energy that slipped past his defenses. Each attack from the aliens became weaker, less effective. The tide was turning. Mara paused for a moment, glancing around the library. She felt the pulse of energy beneath her feet, the heartbeat of the building itself responding to her readings. She whispered softly, "Knowledge and courage together." Zephyros roared in agreement, his wings slicing the air, and the remaining alien soldiers faltered. Some tried to retreat, but others were too far from their ships. The city streets grew quieter, the alien soldiers scattered and confused. Citizens began to emerge, watching the dragon move with calculated grace. Mara's calm voice continued, each word a thread in the invisible web of defense that now held the library and its protectors strong. Zephyros landed on the roof for a moment, shaking his wings and sending sparks flying, before soaring again to intercept any approaching enemies. By evening the aliens had stopped advancing. Mara closed the book for a moment and looked out over the streets. Zephyros landed beside her, head low, eyes sharp. Together they had held back the invaders. Mara felt a quiet satisfaction. She had not used weapons or armies. She had used knowledge, focus, and a bond with a dragon. Humanity had a new kind of power, one that the aliens could not understand. As the city breathed in relief, Mara whispered to Zephyros, "Tomorrow will come and we will be ready." The dragon nudged her gently, understanding her completely. Outside, the sun set behind the alien ships that hovered in the distance, but the human librarian and her dragon had already begun shaping the future of the city. The battle was far from over, but for now, hope had awakened. Mara Selwyn moved quietly through the library, her fingers brushing over the rows of ancient books. Outside, the city still trembled from the alien attack, but inside, the library was calm. Zephyros perched on the roof, wings folding neatly, eyes scanning the horizon for any returning soldiers. Mara felt a pull, a strange vibration beneath her feet. The floor seemed to hum, almost alive, as if it held secrets waiting to be discovered. She followed the feeling, moving toward a hidden archway behind the oldest shelves. The archway had always been there, but she had never noticed it. Dust swirled in the faint light that spilled from the high windows. Mara pressed her hand against the stone wall, and a soft click echoed. The archway opened to a narrow stairwell spiraling downward. Her heart beat faster, but she did not feel fear. She knew this place held something important, something that could help her in the city. At the bottom of the stairs was a chamber filled with glowing scrolls and strange artifacts. The air smelled of old parchment and something faintly metallic. Mara stepped inside, her eyes wide. The walls were covered with carvings of dragons and humans standing together. Scrolls floated gently in the air, as if waiting for her to read them. She picked one up and unrolled it carefully. The symbols and drawings showed humans and dragons fighting side by side, creating powerful energy together. Mara whispered softly, This is what I needed to know." She realized that long ago humans had formed a bond with dragons, a pact that gave them strength in times of danger. It was forgotten now, buried in history and legend. But here, hidden beneath the library, the knowledge had survived. She could feel it in her hands, in the air, and even in Zephyros' watchful eyes. Outside, small groups of alien soldiers tried to regroup. Mara did not panic. She knew that understanding this secret could turn the battle in their favor. She carefully read the scroll aloud, her voice soft but clear. The words had power. The carvings on the walls glowed faintly, and a golden light wrapped around her and the dragon above. Zephyros let out a low roar, feeling the strength of the ancient pact stir within him. The first squad of aliens entered the plaza, thinking the library might be vulnerable while she explored. Zephyros twisted in the air and swooped down, claws striking with precision. Sparks flew as energy rifles failed, soldiers stumbling and scattering. Mara continued reading, her voice guiding him. Each word built invisible walls of energy, subtle traps that stopped the aliens before they could reach the library. Mara moved carefully among the scrolls, finding more instructions, more symbols of power. Each one she read added strength to Zephyros and protection to the building. She traced a pattern in the air, and faint lines of light connected her, the scrolls, and the dragon. The aliens could not see it, but it worked. They tried to coordinate, to flank her, but the energy from the library shifted like a tide, blocking them at every turn. A group of citizens, hiding in the streets, peered cautiously. They whispered to each other in awe. One woman held her child close, saying, "The librarian, she's not just reading. She's fighting. She's controlling the dragon." Mara heard nothing of this, her mind focused entirely on the scrolls and the ancient pact. She understood now that knowledge was as powerful as weapons, maybe even stronger. Zephyros twisted and turned in the air, following the invisible guidance Mara gave. One alien commander, seeing his soldiers fail again and again, fired a signal flare. Reinforcements began arriving, smaller, faster ships that descended quickly. Mara did not panic. She picked another scroll, her fingers trembling slightly with excitement. The words were more complex, describing ways to channel energy into the dragon, to make him faster, stronger, and nearly invincible. Outside, Zephyros responded instantly. He glowed faintly with silver and gold light, moving so fast that soldiers could barely see him. He struck, swooped, and twisted, scattering enemies. Some tried to fire, but their weapons failed. Mara's voice, soft but commanding, gave the dragon direction, predicting enemy movements and guiding each strike. The bond between them was complete. A larger alien squad moved closer to the library's side, thinking they could attack while Mara focused on the scrolls. Zephyros twisted midair, landing in front of them. His claws raked through armor, sparks flying. Mara pointed to another set of symbols, and energy from the scrolls swirled, forming barriers that deflected the aliens' energy beams. Soldiers tried to regroup, but each step they took was blocked by subtle forces they could not see. Mara whispered, "We are not alone. We never were." Zephyros roared, his wings slicing the air, and the alien soldiers hesitated. The city streets seemed to respond to their courage. Even the wind seemed to shift with the dragon's movements, scattering debris and creating small protective gusts around the library. The invaders were powerful, but they were not prepared for the combination of human knowledge and dragon strength. Hours passed, though it felt like minutes to Mara. She had uncovered enough secrets from the library's hidden chamber to understand the full power of the bond. Dragons and humans were meant to work together, their minds and energy linked. This was more than magic. It was strategy, history, and intelligence fused into one unstoppable force. Zephyros landed on the roof beside her, letting out a deep, satisfied rumble. Mara smiled faintly. The aliens had been slowed, scattered, and confused. The library, her home, had become more than a building. It was a fortress, a source of power, and a symbol. Citizens who watched from hiding whispered among themselves, their fears slowly changing into hope. Mara took a deep breath and unrolled one last scroll. It showed a pattern, a map of the city with energy lines connecting important points. She realized that if she could read this aloud and guide Zephyros, they could protect not only the library but the entire city. Her calm, steady voice, the dragon's strength, and the forgotten secrets of the past were enough to turn the tide. Outside, the alien soldiers hesitated again. Their numbers were great, but their confidence was gone. Mara Selwyn, the human librarian, had discovered secrets that made her more than a scholar. She was a strategist, a leader, and the keeper of a power long forgotten. Zephyros spread his wings, glowing faintly, ready for whatever came next. Together they were unstoppable. And deep in the hidden chamber, Mara whispered softly, almost to herself, "We are more than stories. We are history." The sun rose over Lithra City, casting long shadows across streets scarred by alien attacks. The invaders regrouped, their glowing rifles scanning for the human who had defied them and the dragon that had scattered their soldiers. Mara Selwyn stood in the library, calm as ever. The hidden chamber had revealed secrets, but the battle was far from over. She picked up the last scroll, her fingers tracing the ancient symbols. Her voice rose in steady rhythm as she read, words echoing softly through the high ceilings. Zephyros, perched on the library roof, flexed his wings. He felt the pulse of power from Mara's readings and let out a low growl that vibrated through the streets. Alien soldiers approached in larger numbers, more coordinated than before. They moved quickly, trying to surround the library from all sides. Mara did not flinch. She knew that the knowledge she had uncovered, combined with Zephyros' strength, could outmatch even the aliens' advanced technology. A squad of soldiers tried to advance through the central plaza. Zephyros launched into the air, silver scales glinting in the sunlight. His claws struck with precision, sending soldiers tumbling. Mara's words wove through the air, invisible threads that guided him, predicting enemy movements. Sparks flew from broken energy rifles, and armor cracked under the dragon's strikes. The soldiers hesitated, unsure how to fight a creature moving faster than sight, guided by a calm human. Mara flipped pages rapidly, finding patterns that created protective barriers around the library. Energy rippled across the walls, deflecting alien blasts. Even the most confident invaders paused, realizing their weapons were failing against something they could not see or understand. Zephyros roared, leaping toward a group of soldiers trying to flank the building. One swipe of his tail sent them flying into overturned carts and debris. The alien commanders signaled for reinforcements. Sleek ships descended, aiming for the streets near the library. Mara's eyes did not leave the scrolls. She spoke aloud sequences of symbols, her voice calm but strong. Energy from the ancient words flowed into Zephyros, making him faster and stronger. He dove into the incoming soldiers with renewed force, scattering them before they could reach the library. Citizens, hiding in corners and behind rubble, began to watch. Whispers spread. The librarian was not just reading, she was controlling the dragon, directing every movement and strike. Mara glanced briefly at them, her calm gaze steady. She understood the hope her presence inspired. It was not enough to fight, she needed to show the people that courage and knowledge together could overcome fear. An alien squad moved from a side street, thinking they could surprise the dragon and the librarian. Zephyros twisted midair, striking before they realized he was there. Sparks flew, weapons broke, and soldiers fell back in confusion. Mara's voice guided him again, her words creating invisible traps that stopped the soldiers' advance. The bond between human and dragon had become stronger than any weapon the aliens had brought. From the library balcony, Mara noticed a new pattern forming in the energy lines around the city. She traced symbols in the air with her fingers, connecting key points she had learned from the hidden scrolls. The energy formed a protective grid, not visible to the aliens, that blocked their reinforcements from entering the streets. Zephyros responded instantly, darting through the gaps, striking soldiers who tried to bypass the barriers. Hours passed, though it felt like minutes. The aliens were desperate now. Their formations broke and panic spread among them. Mara's calm voice never faltered. She read faster, guiding Zephyros with precision. The dragon's claws and tail moved in perfect harmony with her words, striking enemies and scattering them. Citizens watched, their fear turning into awe, hope shining in their eyes. One group of alien commanders tried to lead a direct assault on the library. Mara took a deep breath and spoke the final sequence from the scrolls. Energy surged outward, wrapping around the building and the dragon like a protective cocoon. Zephyros leapt, claws glowing with golden light, striking the alien soldiers with unmatched speed. Armor melted under his touch and energy rifles fizzled into useless sparks. The invaders could not breach the library's defenses. The city streets, once filled with panic and chaos, became quiet. Citizens slowly emerged, watching the dragon circle above and the librarian standing firmly in the library. Mara realized that this battle had changed something fundamental. Humanity's strength was not only in numbers or weapons. It was in knowledge, courage, and the bonds they could form with creatures of legend. Zephyros landed beside Mara, shaking his wings and letting out a deep, satisfied rumble. She patted his scaled head gently, feeling the pulse of his power calming. The alien soldiers were retreating, their formations broken, their confidence shattered. The tide had turned, not through brute force, but through intelligence, strategy, and the bond between a human and a dragon. Mara looked at the distant alien ships hovering near the horizon. They would return, she knew, but now humanity had a new weapon, one the invaders could not understand. Zephyros nuzzled her gently and she whispered, "We have won today, but tomorrow will come." Together they had protected the library and the city, showing that calm, focus, and knowledge could overcome even the most advanced technology. The citizens began moving cautiously toward the library, bringing water, food, and helping the wounded. Mara remained calm, guiding Zephyros to watch over the streets. Their victory was not complete, but the turning tide had given humanity hope. The aliens had learned something terrifying. Humans were more than soldiers, more than prey, they were thinkers, strategists, and allies of dragons. The sun set behind the distant mountains, casting a golden light over the library and Zephyros' silver scales. Mara stood on the balcony holding the last scroll in her hands. She whispered softly, almost to herself, "We are ready." The dragon's eyes glinted with understanding. Together they had changed the battlefield, shown the people what humans could achieve, and forged a power the aliens could not defeat. Even in the quiet after the chaos, Mara Selwyn knew that the real battle had just begun. But she was ready. With Zephyros at her side and knowledge as her weapon, humanity had a new chance. The tide had turned and it would never turn back. The city was quiet now. The alien ships had disappeared beyond the horizon, their soldiers scattered and broken. Smoke rose from the streets, but the worst of the battle was over. Mara Selwyn stepped onto the library balcony, her hands resting on the stone railing. Zephyros perched beside her, wings folding neatly, eyes sharp and alert. The dragon's scales gleamed in the sunlight, reflecting the broken glass and twisted metal below. The city had survived, and the librarian knew it was because she and her dragon had worked together. Citizens began to emerge from hiding. Children peered around corners, clutching small toys, eyes wide with awe. Adults whispered to one another, telling stories of the human who had faced the alien soldiers without fear, guiding a dragon with nothing but knowledge. Mara watched silently, feeling the weight of responsibility on her shoulders. She had protected the library, yes, but she had also shown the city something more important. Humans could rise above fear, think clearly in chaos, and find strength in unexpected places. Zephyros stretched his wings and let out a soft rumble. Mara smiled faintly. Together they had not only defended the city, they had reminded humanity of its own power. The hidden scrolls in the library, the ancient knowledge of humans and dragons working together, had proven more effective than any weapon the aliens had brought. She felt a quiet satisfaction, knowing that the calm and focus she had maintained throughout the battle had made all the difference. The first citizens cautiously approached the library. Mara stepped down to meet them, her movements calm, unhurried. One man, holding a small child, bowed slightly. "Thank you," he whispered. Mara only nodded, gesturing toward Zephyros. The dragon lowered his head gently, letting the child touch his scales. Awe and fear mixed in the child's eyes, but there was also wonder. Mara realized then that this moment would change the city forever. She walked through the streets slowly, Zephyros following behind. The citizens cleared rubble and helped the wounded, glancing at the dragon and the librarian with gratitude. Mara did not speak much, her presence was enough. The battle had been won, but she knew that the real work was just beginning. She needed to prepare, teach, and ensure that humanity would not be caught unready again. In the distance, the alien ships glimmered faintly, but they did not approach. The invaders had learned something terrifying: humans were not simple prey. Humans had courage, knowledge, and allies like Zephyros. Mara knew the aliens would return, but she was no longer afraid. She had discovered the strength hidden in stories, in legends, and in the quiet bond between a human and a dragon. That evening Mara returned to the library. Zephyros settled on the roof, watching over the city. Mara opened the scrolls and books she had uncovered, studying them carefully. The knowledge of ancient pacts, energy patterns, and protective spells would not remain secret. She planned to teach the citizens, to show them that knowledge was a weapon as powerful as any technology. Humanity had a new tool, and it began with understanding and courage. Citizens began arriving at the library, curious and respectful. Mara welcomed them, showing small groups how to use the energy patterns to protect themselves and the city. Zephyros roamed the streets, a living symbol of their alliance, but always returned to Mara's side when called. The dragon had been a force of battle, but now he was a guardian, ensuring that hope stayed alive in the hearts of the people. As night fell, the city glowed with lanterns and the faint shimmer of energy from the protective lines Mara had created. The once panicked citizens now moved with confidence, inspired by what they had witnessed. Children played in the streets, laughter returning where screams had once filled the air. Mara felt a quiet pride. She had not only defended the city but had helped its people believe in themselves again. Zephyros lay on the roof beside the library balcony, head resting on folded wings. Mara stood beside him, gazing at the stars above. She whispered softly, "We have begun something new." The city had survived, the aliens had been defeated for now, and humanity had discovered a strength they had almost forgotten. Knowledge, courage, and unity with creatures like Zephyros would guide them into the future. The citizens below the library began to sing softly, a song of thanks and hope. Mara listened, smiling faintly. She knew that the road ahead would not be easy. The aliens might return, challenges would come, but humanity had a new beginning. And at the center of it all was a calm librarian who had faced an army, a dragon who had fought with precision, and the understanding that true power comes from wisdom and courage together. Mara closed the oldest book in her hands, feeling the weight of centuries of knowledge. She looked at Zephyros, whose eyes reflected both pride and loyalty. Together they had protected not just the library but the people, the city, and a new era of hope. The aliens could try again, but they would never understand the bond that humans and dragons shared, a force more powerful than any weapon. The night deepened, but the city felt safe. Mara walked back inside the library, Zephyros following closely. She placed the books and scrolls carefully, knowing their secrets would guide future generations. The citizens, inspired and brave, would remember this day forever. The day a human librarian faced alien soldiers, guided a dragon, and showed that courage and knowledge could reshape the world. Mara whispered one last time to Zephyros, "Tomorrow is ours to protect." The dragon let out a soft rumble, curling beside her. Together they watched over Lithra City, guardians of a new era. Humans had discovered their own legend, and it was just beginning.